so easy to look out at the world through warped glass and think the world has warped itself. Easy, too, to live in a warped world and forget that with effort, you could make crooked lines straight. And that's by Max Gladstone. Not sure who Max is, but that's how I would describe going into this movie. So, hey everybody, we're here today to review Poor Things from 2023, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, written by Tony McNamara, based on the book by the same name by Alistair Gray. It stars Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, and Rami Youssef. It's the incredible tale about the fantastical evolution of Bella Baxter, a young woman brought back to life by the brilliant and unorthodox scientist, Godwin Baxter. So my initial reactions were disturbing, gross, terrifying, beautiful, heartbreaking, funny, delightful, as I sat there in the movie theater through the credits finishing. Who's shooting at me? Yeah, wow. I thoroughly adore this movie. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I enjoyed it more than The Favorite, which I did like. I just felt that there was a lot of despair by the end of that, whereas this did not feel that way at all. I didn't feel any despair after watching this. In fact, now that I've had some time to think on it, a couple of hours, I've come to realize that Yorgos Lanthimos and maybe even Tony McNamara by proxy or extent or whatever, them collaborating together, because he also wrote The Favorite. And he also wrote one of my favorite TV shows called The Great, about Catherine the Great, starring Elle Fanning. But a lot of the themes that have seemed to run through both of these is the idea of trappings, whether they're societal trappings or trappings by position and power, which is very much what The Favorite is about. It's about being trapped by power, either having power or wanting power. And this film also has to do with feeling trapped. I think the audience I saw this with was a little trepidatious at first. They were a little nervous, not sure what to make of the proceedings, because the beginning is pretty disturbing. This film won't pull any punches on you. There's nudity, and it's gonna be gory. Oh wow, thanks. And I really enjoyed that aspect of the film, because it felt like this was a film that was actually made for adults to watch, for people who aren't afraid who don't need all their media sanitized to the point where it's just all very much the same. It was refreshing to see a movie that wasn't a product, giving us digestible little scenes, but instead was willing to hit us over the head a couple times and not pull punches. And I guess if that stuff really bothers you, you may miss the point or not get the enjoyment of watching this film. But, I think the relief of watching exploitation films after a while is not seeing moments of degradation and assault on screen all the time. So when it's like fun and consensual, it's kind of a different animal. So there's that little bit to kind of contend with. I think the audience was a little taken aback. They weren't sure how to deal with this until it became very clear that some of this was kind of steeped in absurdism a little bit, and they were able to laugh at things. It's really hard to explain all this without giving spoilers, which I will get into spoilers. And in fact, I will warn you, so that way you can decide if you want to stick around and hear some spoiler talk or not. I'd hate to spoil this movie for anybody. I went in there pretty much as blind as I could be. That's because that's how I love to go to movies. Goodness, very busy over here. So spoiler free, performances are amazing. Emma Stone, it just jumps headfirst into this, and it could have been, this is something that could have been easily been like an embarrassing role if the story and the content hadn't been any good, but instead it just kind of solidifies her excellence as a performer. And it was an absolute treat, I tell you, to get to see Mark Ruffalo play a not flat, boring, dad-like character, but instead this antagonistic hedonist and kind of madman. Just absolutely lovely to see. The story is reminiscent of Frankenstein, the whole Frankenstein idea, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and I think that's a kind of superficial comparison to make, honestly. I mean, there are some important parallels there. For example, when you talk about Frankenstein, often people refer to the reanimated creature as Frankenstein's monster, when in all reality, Frankenstein is the one who is the monster. Modern science is monstrous. And then later on in the movies, I think the analysis kind of falls into the lap of the people, the villagers with the pitchforks and the torches being the monstrous ones. And here it's a little bit more nuanced. It certainly points at society and the human-created world as the true monsters in this film. And I feel like it's a bit reductive and oversimplified to say that society is monsters. To me, when I have heard people criticisms about this film, and the word that keeps coming up is weird and strange and surreal. And I just didn't get a whole lot of that when I watched it. I mean, it is that, but it's because it's trying to hold up a mirror to society, and not just a society back when, not just a past society with all its social mores and restrictions and those sorts of things, but the inherent madness within many human societies. Obviously, not all human societies are full of madness. If this film is anything, it's a reflection. It's a reflection on Western society. Where the heck are you, man? I can't even see you. Why? Anyway, that's the end of my non-spoiler review. I would say go watch this. I am going to watch this multiple times. I thought this was a phenomenal film. I was pretty excited to see what Lanthimos would come up with, and I was not disappointed. I think it's a gorgeous looking film. I love that it brings up all kinds of different emotions at any point. It talks about ideas. It doesn't feel like it's a product. And I just really appreciated it for all that it was trying to do. The performances are great. The writing is sharp and witty. I don't know. There's not much. I'm trying to give you something, a reason to go see it. It's absolutely, it is surreal and weird and strange. It seems like that on the surface, but at its core, it does what good sci-fi is trying to do, which is bring us someone who isn't part of the human experience and then throw them into it. Redescribe things that we already have ideas and predetermined notions about, and make us look at the kind of illogical way that our world, society, and even personal views have been constructed. And it also talks about how, or it also speaks to how these are absolutely trappings. These are trappings that each of us must contend with and deal with. And he does it through the eyes of this kind of coming-of-age story in Emma Stone's Bella Baxter. Because not only is she kind of coming of age, but she also is becoming a human. So, spoilers from here on out. Emma Stone plays a pregnant woman who decides that the answer to her problems and issues is to finish herself off, and does so. Willem Dafoe's scientist is able to bring her back using the brain of the still living unborn fetus in her. And so at the beginning, you're not exactly sure what is happening here, because she seems to behave as somebody who's had a major brain trauma. She's got this childlike nature to her, learning about all the things in the world and dealing with her place in the world. I have no idea where they went. Oh, there they are. Really? How? I don't buy any of this shit. It's hitting them through the grass. Maybe I was hitting the ground. So in that way, it's kind of got the Frankenstein monster thing. Willem Dafoe looks very distorted as a person. Apparently, growing up, his father did tests on him as a scientist, and I mean, just basically child abuse, I would say. So he definitely has this appearance that seems monstrous. Meanwhile, he's caring for this full-grown woman who's developing like a child, and they bring in Rami Youssef's character as a science assistant to help him out with her as far as her documentation and helping her learn and things like that. And one day, a lawyer played by Mark Ruffalo comes to help them draw up some papers, because she's going to, Emma Stone's character is going to marry Rami Youssef. I'm sorry, I can't think of anybody's names right now. And so he ends up stealing her away, because she's kind of been kept inside the house. Partially because I think Willem Dafoe knows that, considering she tried to off herself, she'll be recognized out in London, where this takes place. And the time period is probably about Victorian London, I would guess. It might actually be a little bit earlier than that, because it seems to be before the combustion engine, I think. So somewhere in that kind of 1830 before 1870 or time period. So Mark Ruffalo comes in as this vain, hedonistic character who basically is able to convince her to steal away with him, and they go on adventures together, and he ends up becoming enamored of her and falling for her. And it starts to become this thing where her being trapped in the house with two scientists is almost no different than being trapped with this person who, wants to hold her hostage by love, basically. So she goes on all these adventures throughout the world, leaving behind her old home, learns about the world, the larger world out there, and starts to discover herself through discovery of the world she hasn't been able to see or experience. She has a a sexual awakening and a human awakening, and it's all extremely fun, funny, fascinating. Again, like I said, in your face, but it's only in your face compared to American film. The way American film has become this sanitized product in order to sell something to you and not to actually explore the nature of existing. One of my favorite things is watching Mark Ruffalo just completely unravel. He's a hedonist who gets everything he wants. He lives in a man's world at a time when he has no issues to contend with as far as him being trapped, except that, you know, turns out all these things we consider to be things that make us free are actually the things that keep us trapped. Very cool. Very cool. Where's this fool going? Could use a scope, that's for sure. Whoa. Bella wants for nothing, and she needs for nothing. Her only real shortcoming as a human is the fact that she's a woman. And I don't mean that like, oh, she's a woman, that's her shortcoming. Like, by nature, no, by society, that's her shortcoming. Society has relegated women to second-classhood in this time, in this place, in this society. And her role is to question all that and to break free of all those trappings, which she does so in like one of the best ways possible. I mean, it really hurts us as a society, this U.S. society especially, to be so uptight and puritanical all the time. It leaves nowhere for growth. It leaves nothing for any kind of differences in lifestyle. It's full of judgment. And I think the refreshing part about this film is that none of those rules will apply to Bella Baxter, because she won't let them. She can't at first because she doesn't have any knowledge of the world. But then it becomes her being defiant about being defined by the larger world. And the look of the film kind of follows this. There's at first it's kind of black and white. The white lenses are extreme wide angles to the point where some of the shots are kind of pushed far away, so you look like you're almost looking through a peephole. You're almost voyeuristic to some degree. But I think that has more to do with warping the view. This film very much to me is an idea of a funhouse mirror that is actually an undistorted looking glass. You look at the funhouse mirror and you see the distortion and you believe that what you're looking at is a distorted version of reality, when in essence what you're actually looking at is the unvarnished reality through an undistorted lens. And I guess so when I've heard it described as like, this is a weird, strange, odd film, I'm like, no way. This is about examining society in a way that will hopefully get people to question about why things are the way they are through our hero's journey, as she tries to understand the world and decides that the way the world is set up for her and the way the world is not good enough for her, to the point where it changes the trajectory of her life. So I still think all my initial ideas and words apply, but I think it's even a little more than that too, of a film. You'll go all over the place, you'll see all over the world. It's going to be crazy and beautiful and weird and heartbreaking, and hopefully by the end you won't be the same person. You'll want to be a better person for it. Anyway, I'm sorry if this wasn't more comprehensive. I really want to do a film analysis on it. It's really hard to watch this and just not be like, oh my god, let's do this. Let's go into full analysis mode. Because there's like some smaller themes, like about the time we're in as far as like women and their freedom goes, but and where we're still at as a group of people. But there's also this bigger aspect about societies and our society and how that all comes together and works or doesn't work. Anyway, I wholeheartedly recommend this movie. I think it's awesome. It was way more fun than The Favorite, which I also enjoyed. I just felt bad afterwards watching that. It was all the things enjoyable, but it was also just like kind of filled with despair by the end. Whereas this has a much more optimistic, hopeful view. And I don't know what amount of that is intentional, but there do become conversations about the world ought to be better than it is, and whether a person should even attempt to try and change that. And I think this is probably McNamara and Lanthimos saying it is worth the effort. Hope is worth having. Or at least that's how I read it, and I'd like to believe that's what they're trying to put forth here. Could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. Anyway, I'm going to finish up this game. Thanks for watching, as always. Leave in the comments what you thought about it if you've seen it. And stay tuned here on Media Icons, youtube.com. And check out the channel for more streaming and game action. Twitch.tv/HolidayRob. You can check out Holiday Rob on all the socials. Not sure what the next movie is we'll be reviewing, but hopefully soon it'll come out. And we will see you here again, as always. I'm going to finish up this ridiculous round, and we will see you soon. Peace out. Woo! Yeah, baby. You're done. This lady said that the other night, and I was just like, this is so ridiculous. And then I just said it, so who's ridiculous now, Rob? You judgy son of a gun. Oh, darn. Really? A Goldie shotgun? Quiet over here. Not a lot going on. 4 more players left. Where do you think they're going to send this next ring to? Sweet. Where is everybody? Nobody has bothered with getting the medallions. I'm the only one. I'm the only sucker here. Still getting medallions. Uh-oh. Hang on real quick. Where are they? Oh, they're coming on up. Boom. That was my round. Whew. Yeah. Alright, gotta win. 10, hey. And only 1 out of 5 shots hitting. Good lord. Well, have a good one. We'll see you later. Peace out.